Welcome to Zoe Stories. Mom made me dress up. Now I'm her perfect little girl. The box sat on my bed, small and neatly wrapped, but it carried an energy that made my chest tighten. Mom's handwriting on the tag was perfectly neat, looping letters that spelled my name as if marking territory. My fingers hovered over it, hesitating, because opening it would change everything, and yet, the pull to uncover it was irresistible. Mom appeared in the doorway without a sound, her eyes soft but calculating. "It's for you," she said, her voice gentle, but there was no mistaking the command underneath. "Put it on. I want to see you like this." A thrill ran through me, sharp and nervous. This wasn't the casual teasing or the occasional suggestion about clothing. This was intentional, precise, deliberate. Mom had a plan, and for reasons I couldn't fully understand, I wanted to see it through. The box smelled faintly of perfume, a delicate floral scent that made my stomach twist. Inside, folded with care, was a dress unlike anything I had dared to wear outside my private world. Pink, soft silk, adorned with tiny lace edges and satin bows, it seemed to vibrate with possibility. It wasn't just a dress. It was an invitation, and a test. "Go on," Mom said, stepping closer. She watched me carefully, her expression unreadable. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, as if holding its breath. My pulse raced in response, not just from the nerves, but from a curiosity I hadn't acknowledged until this moment. Sliding into the dress was surreal. The fabric clung to my skin, light and warm, each fold and lace edge brushing against me like an electric current. The mirror reflected someone different. Vulnerable, delicate, yet impossibly alert. My reflection wasn't just me. It was a version of myself molded by Mom's vision, a version I had never seen before but somehow recognized. Mom smiled, a slow, satisfied smile. "You look perfect," she whispered. And though her words were soft, the power behind them was undeniable. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My body was aware before my mind was ready. Fear, shame, and an undeniable thrill tangled together inside me, forming something I couldn't untangle. Isabella crossed my thoughts like a shadow. She knew a little about my crossdressing, playful teasing in private moments, but she had no idea of Mom's new game. The thought of her discovering this, of Mom shaping me in ways I hadn't consented to fully, made my stomach twist. Would she laugh? Scold me? Or worse, judge me? The dress fit perfectly, almost like it had been designed for me. But the feeling wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. With each bow, each lace trim, I felt a subtle shift inside myself, a quiet tug toward someone I hadn't dared to be. And yet, the shift was exhilarating. The tension in my body was balanced by a strange excitement I couldn't deny. Mom circled me slowly, eyes sharp and evaluating. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "We're going to make you the perfect little girl, my way. Don't worry, you'll enjoy it." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to protest, to insist that I wasn't ready, but the reality was, a part of me was already curious, already yearning to explore what she had planned. It was a dangerous combination: control, temptation, and the thrill of being seen in a way that felt forbidden. I caught my reflection again, lingering on the delicate curve of my waist, the soft swing of the skirt. My hands instinctively smoothed the fabric over my body, and a strange warmth bloomed in my chest. This was no longer just a dress. It was a key to a world I had kept secret, a world that Mom was opening for me, but on her terms. The morning passed with silent tension, Mom offering subtle guidance as I adjusted the dress, learning the careful movements that made it feel like an extension of me. Each step, each gesture, was a lesson in obedience, control, and the thrill of transformation. And beneath it all, my mind raced with anticipation, fear, and a growing curiosity I couldn't ignore. By the time the sun had climbed high in the sky, I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. My life had already begun to change, quietly, deliberately. And though I didn't know exactly what awaited me, a part of me couldn't wait to find out. The afternoon sun filtered lazily through the living room curtains, painting the walls in warm, golden stripes. I sat on the edge of the couch, the silk of the dress brushing my thighs with every small movement. Mom had left to run errands, but her presence still lingered in the room, a kind of invisible authority that made every inch of me feel under observation, even when I was alone. I stared at myself in the full-length mirror that Mom had strategically placed in the corner of the room. At first glance, I almost didn't recognize the reflection. The soft pink dress clung to my frame, delicate lace framing the curves I hadn't noticed before. My hair, which Mom had insisted on curling, fell in perfect waves around my shoulders. Even my hands looked different, smaller, softer. It was thrilling, in a way I didn't expect. I had cross-dressed before, sneaking outfits from my own collection late at night, but this was different. This wasn't hidden. This wasn't secret play. This was Mom's vision, and it felt like stepping into a world designed entirely for me, but not by me. I took a slow breath and adjusted the hem of the dress. The sensation of silk against skin, the gentle tug of the waistband, the way the lace tickled my arms, each movement sent a shiver through me. Part of me wanted to run, to strip the dress off and reclaim the freedom of my old life. But a louder, sharper part of me wanted to stay. Wanted to explore. The first challenge came unexpectedly. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, making me jump. It was a message from Isabella. "Hey, you free this afternoon?" Was thinking of stopping by. My heart raced. This wasn't just a casual visit, it was a threat to my carefully balanced secret. I scrambled to my bag, searching for my phone, trying to hide the skirt as though it were evidence of a crime. My hands trembled, and I cursed myself silently. How could I explain anything? Then I noticed the small heels Mom had placed beside the couch. They looked innocent enough, pink, delicate, not too high, but slipping them on made me feel like I was walking on a tightrope. Every step I took was calculated, careful, a practice in poise and balance. The first stumble made me panic, my knees weak, my chest tight. I wasn't just learning to wear heels. I was learning to inhabit someone else's version of me, perfectly polished, fragile, and aware of every movement. I practiced walking across the living room, glancing at the mirror at each step. The reflection felt alive, teasing, almost mocking. My arms were too aware of themselves, my posture too deliberate. But with each stride, a strange confidence began to rise. I felt more feminine, in a way I couldn't articulate. Yet that confidence came paired with vulnerability. Every sound outside, every creak in the floor, made me freeze, heart hammering. Minutes later, the sound of the front door opening froze me in place. My pulse spiked. I knew it wasn't Isabella, Mom had returned early. Panic rose, sharp and fast. I dove behind the couch, pressing myself flat, heels scraping lightly against the carpet. My breath came shallow, fast. Mom's voice floated from the hallway. "I'm home early, honey. Just wanted to check how you were doing." I stayed hidden, gripping the edge of the couch, cheeks burning. Every second stretched, torturous. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it was over. Mom passed by the living room, humming softly, unaware, or pretending not to notice, that I was crouched behind the couch like a guilty secret. The adrenaline didn't fade immediately. I emerged slowly, checking my reflection once more. The pink dress, the curled hair, the delicate heels, they weren't just clothes anymore. They were a state of mind, a persona that felt almost permanent in its presence. And as much as fear lingered, excitement grew too. Mom's experiment was working. I was becoming her perfect little girl. I spent the rest of the afternoon exploring this new self, walking carefully around the house, practicing gestures, expressions, even the way I held my hands. The mirror became a confidant, reflecting back a version of me I had never dared to see before. Every tilt of the head, every sway of the hips, every soft step on the carpet made me more aware of the delicate balance I was learning to maintain. By evening, exhaustion set in. My muscles ached from the unfamiliar posture, the high heels, the constant tension of awareness. But beneath that exhaustion, a deep, thrilling sense of discovery simmered. I was learning, adapting, becoming. And though I wasn't sure whether to feel pride or fear, I knew one thing: this was only the beginning. The evening settled over the house, soft shadows stretching across the walls, and the once cozy living room now felt like a stage. I was alone, but Mom's influence lingered in every corner, as though the house itself had absorbed her presence. I paced slowly, feeling the silk of the pink dress brush against my thighs, each step a reminder of the persona I was beginning to inhabit. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. The curls cascaded perfectly, the lace framed my shoulders just right, and the subtle shimmer of the fabric made my skin feel almost unreal. My pulse quickened. I touched my face lightly, feeling the soft contour of my cheeks, the way the dress accentuated curves I had never noticed before. This wasn't just a costume anymore, it was becoming a part of me. But with that realization came a wave of panic. What if someone saw me like this? Isabella, she could come over at any moment, curious, joking, and then everything would unravel. My mind raced with scenarios of exposure, humiliation, and betrayal. Yet beneath the panic, a secret thrill pulsed, stronger than fear, whispering that this was exactly where I was meant to be. I sank onto the couch, letting my hands glide over the fabric of the skirt. The tactile sensation was intoxicating, soft, delicate, intimate. I pressed the heels against the carpet, feeling the unfamiliar strain in my calves, the awkwardness in my balance. Every sensation made me acutely aware of my body, hyper-focused on how it moved, how it looked, how it could be perceived. The first part of the evening was quiet, almost painfully so. But then, the sound of a soft knock on the door made me freeze. My heart leapt into my throat. I wasn't expecting anyone. Not Isabella, not a neighbor, no one. I crept toward the door on tiptoe, careful of my heels, and peeked through the peephole. It was just a delivery. Relief washed over me, followed by a blush I couldn't explain. Even a mundane encounter like that sent waves of vulnerability through me. I realized then that the thrill of crossdressing wasn't just in the act, it was in the constant tightrope walk of secrecy, the fear of being discovered at any moment. Once the door closed, I let myself sink back into the persona Mom had crafted. I practiced small gestures, tilting my head, crossing my legs, letting my hands rest delicately on my lap. The mirror became my guide, my silent observer, reflecting a version of me that felt impossibly fragile yet intoxicatingly powerful. Hours passed as I moved from room to room, testing the dress, the heels, and the persona I was stepping into. Every step was a lesson, every glance in the mirror a confirmation that I was becoming someone else, someone Mom approved of, someone she had designed. The house, once familiar and safe, had transformed into a private stage, a rehearsal space for my own metamorphosis. As the night deepened, I began experimenting further. I tried on different accessories, delicate earrings, a pearl necklace Mom had left on the dresser, even a light touch of makeup she had shown me how to apply. Each addition heightened the sense of transformation, of inhabiting a version of myself that felt both foreign and exhilarating. My fingers trembled slightly as I applied the lipstick, the red so vivid against the soft pink of the dress, and the reflection that met me was almost unrecognizable. And then came the quietest, most intense part of the evening, the moment when I allowed myself to imagine being seen. Not by Mom, not by Isabella, but by the world, in this delicate, perfect form. My mind filled with a mixture of fear and anticipation, the thrill of exposure without risk. It was intoxicating. The duality, the shame and the delight, twisted together, forming a tension I couldn't ignore. I practiced moving around the house, pretending I was going out, walking down an imaginary street where eyes followed me, where the world noticed and admired. Every step, every sway of the skirt, every careful placement of my hands reinforced the persona I was becoming. And yet, underneath, I knew it was fragile, one sound, one unexpected interruption could shatter the illusion instantly. By the time I finally collapsed onto the couch, exhausted, my body ached from the unfamiliar posture, the heels, the tension. But my mind was electric, alive with the possibilities Mom had opened for me. I was learning, adapting, and each lesson came with a mixture of fear, shame, and exhilaration that I couldn't separate. As I drifted toward sleep that night, the reflection in my mind's eye stayed vivid, the delicate curves, the silk and lace, the persona I was slowly becoming. Mom's influence, her gentle insistence, had planted a seed, and it was growing fast. Tomorrow promised new lessons, new challenges, and the thrill of exploring how far I could go without being caught. And somewhere deep inside, a part of me whispered that I didn't want to stop, even if I should. The next morning, the sunlight slipped through the blinds in soft, golden beams, warming the floor and lighting up the pink dress I had carefully folded the night before. But the warmth of the sun did little to ease the tension coiling in my stomach. Today, Mom had said, would be a proper lesson. Her words had sounded harmless, even nurturing, but I knew better. Her lessons were never casual. They were precise, deliberate, and designed to test me. I waited in the living room, the small heels tapping nervously against the hardwood floor. Mom appeared, carrying a tray with tea and a small assortment of pastries. She set it down with meticulous care, then tilted her head at me, eyes bright with purpose. Today, we focus on poise and presence, she said, her tone soft yet commanding. It's not just the clothes. It's how you carry yourself. How others perceive you. Every movement, every glance, it all matters. Her words were simple, but the weight behind them made my chest tighten. I nodded, swallowing the lump of anxiety in my throat. The truth was, I wanted to be perfect for her. Part of me even craved it. But another part, a part one hadn't fully acknowledged, was terrified of losing myself entirely in this persona she was shaping. Mom began slowly, demonstrating a careful walk across the room. She moved with the elegance of someone born into it, each step measured, graceful, commanding yet delicate. My eyes followed every motion, memorizing the tilt of her chin, the gentle sway of her arms, the effortless confidence in her gaze. Then she gestured toward me. "Your turn," she said. I took a deep breath and lifted my chin, imitating her movements as best as I could. The heels wobbled beneath me, and I nearly stumbled, my hands instinctively reaching out for balance. Mom's eyes softened slightly, but her smile remained measured. "Again," she said. And I did. And again. Each repetition drilled into me a sense of awareness I hadn't felt before. My body was becoming a vessel, responding to her instruction, guided by her vision. After what felt like hours, she introduced the mirror. "Observe yourself," she instructed, placing the full-length mirror in front of me. "You must know every angle, every expression, every curve. Awareness is power." I studied my reflection with a mix of fascination and fear. The silk dress clung perfectly, the lace delicate and precise. My curled hair framed my face, and the subtle blush Mom had applied emphasized my cheeks in a way that made me look different. Not just different, someone else. The girl staring back was elegant, fragile, and impossibly polished. Every movement I made became hyper-aware, my body learning to conform to this new image. Mom stepped closer, adjusting a strand of hair that had escaped. "You're improving," she said softly, her hands gentle but firm. "But perfection is about subtlety. It's not enough to look the part. You must become it." Her words lingered in my mind, a mixture of encouragement and subtle pressure. And I realized the terrifying truth: this wasn't just about clothing. It was about control, hers over me, mine over myself. Each lesson, each adjustment, pulled me deeper into a world I hadn't anticipated, one that thrilled and frightened me in equal measure. Later, she introduced small tasks, arranging the living room with precision, pouring tea with careful attention, practicing gestures of politeness and charm. Each action was deliberate, measured, and judged. The mundane became a training ground for transformation, every small motion a test of my ability to inhabit this delicate, perfect persona. By mid-afternoon, exhaustion and exhilaration mingled in equal measure. My legs ached from the heels, my arms tired from holding positions I hadn't realized were demanding. But the reflection in the mirror, the way the dress moved with my body, the way Mom's eyes watched me, filled me with a heady mix of fear and delight. A new layer of internal conflict began to surface. I felt a strange shame in how much I craved her approval, yet a thrill in knowing I was meeting her expectations. Every glance in the mirror, every measured step, every delicate gesture intensified the tension inside me. I was becoming more aware of my own desires I hadn't fully acknowledged, desires shaped and amplified by Mom's careful guidance. As the day drew to a close, Mom finally allowed me a brief rest. I sank onto the couch, trembling slightly, catching my reflection once more. I was tired, physically and emotionally, but the sense of transformation was undeniable. I wasn't just wearing a dress, I was stepping into a world that had always existed on the edges of my imagination, now fully realized, crafted with Mom's hands. And though fear still lingered, fear of discovery, of exposure, of losing myself entirely, so did an undeniable exhilaration. Each lesson, each movement, each subtle adjustment in posture or expression reinforced that I was becoming someone new. Someone delicate, refined, and perfectly shaped to her vision. In the quiet of the evening, as shadows stretched across the walls, I realized that Mom's lessons were not just about clothing or posture. They were about shaping me, molding me, drawing out a version of myself I hadn't dared to explore. And the deeper I stepped into her world, the more I wondered, was this transformation a gift, or a trap I could never escape? The next day felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Mom had left early, claiming errands and meetings, and I was alone in the house, yet more aware than ever of her invisible presence. Today was different. Today, I was expected to move freely, to inhabit this delicate, perfect persona she had so carefully sculpted. But the idea of being alone, without guidance, sparked a new kind of tension, the fear of exposure. I moved cautiously through the rooms, heels clicking softly against the polished floors, the silk of the dress rustling with every step. I tried to focus on the mirror, on perfecting the tilt of my head, the sway of my hips, the delicate way my fingers rested against the fabric. But every creak in the floor, every distant sound outside, made me pause, heart hammering. A sudden buzz startled me, my phone. I hadn't expected any messages, yet there it was, Isabella's name flashing on the screen. My pulse spiked. "She's early." The message read, "Hey, thinking of dropping by, want to see you. Don't be late." I froze. The thrill of crossdressing in secret clashed violently with panic. I had to hide, but there was nowhere truly safe. The heels made me slow, deliberate, any misstep, any sound could betray me. I scanned the room, mind racing for options. Then a sudden idea struck me, the guest bedroom, the door just down the hall. I darted toward it, heels clicking sharply, silk brushing my legs. I slipped inside, pulling the door closed as quietly as I could. The room smelled faintly of lavender, still holding traces of Mom's care. I pressed myself against the wall, chest heaving, and stared at the mirror on the dresser. The reflection that met me was almost unrecognizable. The dress, the curls, the subtle makeup, they had fully transformed me. But there was fear in those eyes now, a trembling uncertainty that hadn't been there when Mom had been watching. Without her presence, without her guidance, the perfection felt fragile. Minutes stretched endlessly. I imagined Isabella stepping into the house, her eyes widening at the sight of me in this delicate form. Would she laugh? Scold me? Or worse, understand something I wasn't ready to admit? My mind raced with scenarios, each more mortifying than the last, and yet, beneath the panic, a pulse of excitement surged. The thrill of being seen, of almost being discovered, was intoxicating. Unable to sit still, I experimented with small movements, walking a few steps, adjusting the dress, tilting my head in the mirror. Every motion felt amplified, every detail crucial. The mirror reflected a version of me I hadn't dared to be outside Mom's watchful eyes, and yet it was undeniably me. Fragile, elegant, and impossibly aware of every inch of my body. Time passed agonizingly slowly. The front door remained silent, no sign of Isabella, no interruption, but the tension didn't ease. Every sound became a potential threat, every shadow a reminder of exposure. My hands shook slightly as I practiced gestures, picking up a teacup Mom had left on the dresser. I poured imaginary tea, feeling the weight of the cup, the grace in each motion, the delicate elegance of a performance that felt both thrilling and terrifying. As the afternoon stretched on, I realized that the real test wasn't the dress or the heels, it was secrecy. Could I maintain this fragile persona without being caught? Could I inhabit Mom's perfect little girl fully, even when no one was watching? The thought of failure, of breaking the illusion, made my pulse spike with fear, and yet, a secret part of me reveled in the challenge. By evening, exhaustion had set in. My legs ached from the heels, my arms tired from the delicate movements, my mind strained from constant vigilance. And yet, when I glanced at the mirror one last time, I saw more than just a reflection. I saw a duality forming, the person I had been, secret and hidden, and the persona Mom had carefully molded, delicate, perfect, and aware of every glance, every gesture, every step. The thrill of secrecy, the fear of discovery, and the intoxicating realization of transformation fused into a single, potent emotion. I understood now that Mom's lessons weren't just about clothing, posture, or appearance, they were about control, awareness, and the delicate balance of power between guidance and independence. And in the quiet of the empty house, I realized something even more dangerous. I was starting to crave it. The thrill of the secret, the fear of being caught, the intoxicating perfection of the persona, I wanted more. I wanted to see how far I could take it, how completely I could inhabit the persona Mom had created. Tomorrow promised new challenges, deeper lessons, and the ever-present tension of secrecy. And as I sank into the couch, heels discarded for a brief reprieve, I knew that the line between fear and desire was blurring, and there was no turning back. The house was quiet, almost unnaturally so, as the sun dipped toward the horizon. Shadows stretched long across the living room, and the golden light highlighted every curve of the pink dress I had come to inhabit so completely. Tonight, I wasn't just practicing. Tonight, I was testing myself, seeing how far I could push this fragile persona Mom had meticulously crafted. I moved carefully, each step deliberate, heels clicking softly against the polished floor. My fingers brushed the lace at my wrists, adjusting the fit, checking the mirror reflection in every room. The thrill of secrecy pulsed stronger than ever. I knew Mom could return at any moment, or Isabella could arrive unexpectedly, and the very thought sent shivers racing down my spine. Then, the unmistakable sound of a car pulling into the driveway froze me in place. My pulse spiked violently. Isabella. The knock on the front door came moments later, soft but insistent. My heart pounded in my ears. Every fiber of me screamed to hide, to throw off the dress, to reclaim the safety of my old self, but I couldn't. Not now. Not after everything I had learned, every step, every lesson, every delicate adjustment. I crept to the hallway, heaping low, sliding behind the couch. My reflection in the mirror caught the tip of my heels and the edge of the dress, a silent reminder of the persona I had been building. I held my breath as Isabella's voice floated in. "Hey, you here?" she called, a casual warmth in her tone. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the dress, smoothing the fabric over my thighs. My mind raced, weighing every option, calculating every possible outcome. And then, courage, or perhaps reckless thrill, took over. I decided not to hide. Not entirely. I stepped lightly into the hallway, the dress swaying with each careful motion. My heart hammered as Isabella opened the door, her eyes immediately catching the delicate pink fabric, the curls of my hair, the subtle blush on my cheeks. Her expression froze. Surprise, curiosity, and a flicker of something unreadable crossed her face. "Wow," she breathed, voice caught somewhere between amusement and shock. I swallowed hard, struggling to maintain the composure Mom had drilled into me over the past days. "Hi," I said softly, letting my hands rest delicately in front of me. Every motion felt amplified, every detail magnified. I was vulnerable, exposed, but exhilarated. Isabella stepped inside, eyes scanning me as if trying to place me in a familiar frame. The tension between us was electric, unspoken, and I realized how much I had craved this moment, the test, the validation, the fear of discovery intertwined with a strange thrill. "You look different," she said finally, a half-smile tugging at her lips. "I mean, really different." My pulse raced. Was it judgment? Approval? She didn't say more, letting the silence stretch, thick and heavy. I tried to speak, but my throat felt dry, my words fragile. Just trying something new," I managed to say, voice barely above a whisper. Isabella's gaze softened slightly, and she stepped closer, studying the reflection of the dress, the curls, the poised posture. "It's nice." "Very nice," she said, almost teasing, almost approving. My body relaxed slightly, though the adrenaline still coursed fiercely through me. But the moment wasn't over. The mail slot clattered unexpectedly, startling both of us. My heels wobbled slightly, and I instinctively reached for the edge of the dress to steady myself. The sensation was electric, shame, excitement, thrill, all mingling in a way I hadn't anticipated. Isabella noticed, her eyes flicking to my hands, to the delicate posture I was maintaining, and a slow smile spread across her face. "You're really committed to this, huh?" she said, voice teasing but not unkind. I nodded, cheeks flushed, realizing fully that I had crossed a threshold. This wasn't just practice anymore. This wasn't just Mom's lesson. This was me, fully inhabiting the persona, vulnerable and exposed, and yet exhilarated by the power it gave me, the power to surprise, to captivate, to challenge expectations. As the evening wore on, Isabella remained, curious but supportive, and I navigated the delicate balance of interaction, keeping the persona intact while managing the intense emotions that threatened to spill over. Every step, every glance, every subtle gesture became a test of control and poise, a dance between fear and thrill. By the time she left, the house was silent again, and I collapsed onto the couch, heels discarded, dress smoothing against my thighs. Exhaustion, exhilaration, and a strange sense of triumph coursed through me. I had survived my first real close call, maintained the persona Mom had built, and even faced an external witness without collapsing. But beneath the victory simmered a new, more dangerous realization. The more I embraced this persona, the deeper I stepped into Mom's world, the harder it would be to separate myself from it. Fear, thrill, desire, they were merging, forming a tension I didn't know how to untangle. And as the shadows deepened, stretching long across the walls, I understood clearly that this was only the beginning. Mom's lessons, the thrill of secrecy, the intoxicating pull of transformation, it had me fully in its grip. The next morning, the house felt different, heavier, almost alive with tension. Mom had left again, but her presence lingered like a shadow in every room, every reflection, every whisper of fabric brushing against my skin. Today, I wasn't just practicing. Today, I was navigating a world that demanded perfection, and failure could come from anywhere. I slipped into the pink dress once more, curling my hair carefully, tracing the lace edges with meticulous fingers. Each detail mattered. My heels clicked softly as I moved through the rooms, every step deliberate, controlled. But the thrill of secrecy had turned into a tightrope of anxiety. A knock at the door sent my heart racing, and for a moment, every muscle in my body froze. It was a neighbor, Mrs. Holloway, holding a small package. "Just delivering this," she said, smiling warmly. My pulse quickened. I smiled politely, too aware of the persona I was maintaining. She didn't linger, but as the door clicked shut behind her, I realized how fragile my secrecy was. Every interruption, every visitor, every sound could unravel everything Mom had built, and expose me fully. I moved to the mirror, adjusting my posture, trying to steady my trembling hands. The reflection stared back at me, delicate, polished, poised, but also tense, alert, vulnerable. I could feel the weight of Mom's lessons pressing down on me, the expectation of perfection, the thrill of secrecy, and the fear of discovery all tangled into one intense emotion. Then, my phone buzzed again. Isabella. Hey, can I drop by later? Got something to show you. The words sent a jolt through me. My pulse spiked. She had never been this direct, this insistent. And now, I wasn't just navigating my own fear, I was facing the potential of exposure from someone who knew pieces of my secret, someone whose perception mattered more than anyone's. Minutes turned into hours as I prepared, walking through the house, checking the mirror, smoothing the dress, curling the hair one last time. Each small movement became amplified, every tilt of the head, every shift of the hips, every adjustment of the fabric felt like it carried the weight of life and death. When the doorbell finally rang, I froze. My heels clicked softly as I moved toward the door, heart hammering. Isabella stood there, casual but sharp-eyed, her gaze flicking over me with curiosity and something I couldn't quite read. You look different, she said again, a mix of surprise and intrigue in her tone. Her eyes lingered, and I felt both exposed and exhilarated. My throat was dry, my hands trembling slightly as I held the edge of the dress. Thanks, I whispered, voice fragile but steady. I could feel the persona Mom had crafted fully inhabiting me now, delicate, poised, aware of every glance, every gesture, every movement. But beneath that polished surface, fear roared. One misstep, one slip, and everything could collapse. We moved to the living room, sitting across from each other. Isabella's presence was magnetic, her gaze intense. She asked casual questions, her tone teasing, but each word felt like a probe, testing the limits of my composure. I answered carefully, maintaining perfect posture, delicate gestures, soft expressions, but inside, my mind raced with tension. Then came the unexpected, a knock on the side door, sharp and insistent. My stomach twisted. Who else could it be? A neighbor? Mom? I froze, heels clicking against the floor as I moved to peek through the window. A delivery man, a mundane interruption, but the fear, the adrenaline, didn't ease. Every moment became a test of composure. Isabella noticed the tension, her eyes flicking to my hands, my posture, my expression. You're really focused today, she said, a teasing edge in her voice. Yes, I managed, voice soft. Just trying something new. The words were true, but incomplete. It wasn't just something new. It was a persona, a transformation, a secret life that was teetering on the edge of exposure. And every glance, every word, every sound pushed me further into the delicate balance between thrill and terror. As the afternoon stretched on, the tension built to an almost unbearable level. Every knock, every creak, every whisper of wind against the windows felt amplified, charged with the possibility of discovery. And yet, beneath the fear, a strange exhilaration surged, the thrill of navigating the impossible, of inhabiting a persona so delicate and polished that even a moment of exposure would feel like a victory. By evening, the house was quiet again, but the energy lingered. I sat before the mirror one last time, adjusting the curls, smoothing the lace, tracing the fabric with trembling fingers. The reflection stared back, delicate, poised, polished, but also tense, alert, aware of every possibility, every risk, every thrill. I realized then, fully and vividly, that I had crossed a threshold. The fear, the excitement, the thrill of secrecy, they had merged into something unbreakable. Mom's lessons had done more than transform me physically, they had reshaped my mind, my perception, my very essence. And as the shadows deepened around me, I understood that the real danger, and the real thrill, was only beginning. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the living room, turning every familiar object into something slightly unfamiliar, almost menacing. I was perched delicately on the edge of the couch, heels clicking softly on the hardwood floor, the pink dress perfectly smoothed over my thighs. Isabella had stayed longer than I expected, her casual presence now charged with tension. Every glance she cast seemed to weigh me, examine me, question me, and the persona Mom had built trembled under her scrutiny. Then, it happened. The sound of the front door unlocking, Mom. My stomach plummeted. She hadn't mentioned returning early. Panic surged like wildfire. My body froze, frozen in place by the tightrope of secrecy I had walked so carefully. Isabella looked toward the door, eyebrows raised in surprise. Is she home already? I swallowed, the silk of the dress pressing against my chest as though it too were anxious. I think so, I whispered, voice trembling. Every muscle in my body was taut, every nerve alive with fear. Mom entered, humming softly, carrying grocery bags. Her eyes fell on the two of us, and for a split second, time slowed. She froze mid-step, one bag held slightly higher than the other, taking in the scene with a precise, calculating gaze. "You too," she said softly, almost serene, "what's going on here?" The air became impossibly thick. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, the tremor in my hands, the tightness in my chest. Mom's eyes weren't angry, not yet, but the weight behind them was enough to make me feel exposed, vulnerable, utterly fragile. Isabella's expression flickered, surprise, confusion, curiosity, but she didn't move. Her gaze met mine, and I could see the unspoken question: how much of my secret had she uncovered? I tried to speak, to explain, but my voice was caught in my throat. The persona I had built, delicate, poised, perfect, felt on the verge of cracking under the tension. Every small gesture mattered now, every breath, every tilt of my head, every motion of my hands. Mom stepped closer, setting the grocery bags down with meticulous care. She reached out, adjusting a strand of hair that had fallen across my face. "You've done well," she said softly, almost approving, almost chilling. "But perfection isn't just about appearance. It's about control, awareness, and knowing the limits of exposure." My heart pounded. I realized in that moment that the thrill of transformation came with a price. The closer I came to perfection, the more fragile my world became. One slip, one misstep, one misjudged glance could unravel everything. Isabella's curiosity overcame her hesitation. "Wow, you look incredible," she said softly, voice tinged with admiration. But beneath it was something else, a sharp edge of awareness, a glint that suggested she had noticed something unusual. Before I could respond, Mom's eyes narrowed slightly, subtle but precise. "Isabella," she said, voice calm but commanding, "I hope you understand that what happens here is private. This is not a game, nor a curiosity to be explored without permission." The words struck like ice. I could feel the tension in the room spike, every heartbeat a drumbeat of suspense. Isabella nodded, a flicker of understanding in her gaze, while I realized the full gravity of the situation. This was more than secrecy, it was control, power, expectation, and the fragile balance between thrill and fear. I sank slightly into the couch, heels pressing into the floor, hands clutching the edge of the dress. My mind raced with questions, fears, and the intoxicating pull of the persona I had inhabited so fully. Could I maintain this balance? Could I survive the unexpected twists, the scrutiny, the challenges that Mom orchestrated so perfectly? Mom's voice softened again. "You've come far, but the real test is managing both the thrill and the fear. To truly inhabit this persona, you must learn to balance desire, secrecy, and composure, even under pressure." And just like that, the delicate tension escalated into something almost unbearable. Every glance, every gesture, every heartbeat became charged with stakes I hadn't anticipated. I was no longer just practicing transformation, I was living it, teetering on the edge of exposure, desire, and control. As the sun dipped lower, casting shadows across the room, I realized something profound and terrifying. The thrill, the fear, the vulnerability, they were inseparable from the persona I had become. And the closer I drew to perfection, the higher the stakes climbed. By the time Isabella left, the house was silent again, but the tension lingered, electric and raw. I remained in front of the mirror, heels discarded, fingers tracing the lace of the dress, reflecting on the delicate balance I had maintained. The close call had shown me the power of transformation, and the peril. And deep inside, I knew that the most dangerous, and exhilarating, moments were still to come. The evening deepened, shadows stretching across the walls like silent spectators. I moved through the house with deliberate care, heels clicking softly, the dress flowing perfectly over my thighs. But tonight, even the familiar rooms felt different, tense, alive with expectation. Every creak of the floorboard, every whisper of wind through the window felt like a warning. Mom had returned, and although she was in the kitchen unpacking groceries, her presence was palpable. The lessons, the corrections, the meticulous instructions, they were still in my mind, guiding every movement, every gesture, every subtle tilt of my head. But something had shifted. The thrill of transformation was no longer pure excitement. It was fused with fear, the fear of making a mistake, the fear of exposure, the fear of losing the delicate balance I had fought so hard to maintain. Then it happened, a knock at the front door. Sharp. Insistent. My heart lurched violently. I wasn't expecting anyone. Not now. Not tonight. I froze, hands gripping the edge of the couch as adrenaline surged through me. Mom glanced toward the door, eyes narrowing slightly. I didn't expect company, she said calmly, but her tone carried a subtle edge of command, a warning I couldn't ignore. Isabella's voice floated in from the hallway earlier, teasing and light, but now replaced by the chilling weight of possibility, exposure. My mind raced. Could I maintain composure? Could I stay in the persona without faltering? Every fiber of me screamed to hide, to slip into normalcy, but that was impossible now. I moved toward the door, trying to appear casual, elegant, poised, the perfect little girl Mom had trained me to be. My heels clicked against the floor, the sound unnervingly loud in the tense quiet. I hesitated, hand on the doorknob, and then a voice called out. "Hey, it's just me," said a familiar, friendly tone. It was my cousin, someone who had never seen me crossdressing before. My chest tightened. The persona, delicate and polished, was suddenly fragile, dangling on the edge of exposure. I swallowed hard, voice trembling slightly despite my efforts to remain calm. "Hi, come in," I whispered, opening the door just enough to let him slip inside. He stepped in casually, chatting about mundane things, unaware of the delicate tension threading through the room. But I could feel it, the taut wire of secrecy stretching thinner with every word, every glance. The dress clung to me like a second skin, the heels elevated me, but also reminded me of how exposed I was. Every movement, every gesture was amplified, every breath measured. Mom observed silently, eyes calculating, a faint smile tugging at her lips. She didn't interfere, didn't speak, but the weight of her presence amplified my anxiety. I was performing, not just for my cousin, but under the invisible scrutiny of Mom's expectations. Then disaster nearly struck. As I turned to pour a glass of water for my cousin, the hem of the dress caught on the corner of the table. My foot slipped slightly in the heels, and for a heart-stopping moment, I teetered dangerously. My hands shot out instinctively, clutching the edge of the table, saving myself from a fall, but the movement drew every eye to me. Silence. My cousin froze, eyebrows raised. Mom's eyes flicked to me, sharp, assessing. Isabella, though not present physically, lingered in my memory, her teasing voice echoing in my mind. I forced a delicate laugh, smoothing the dress over my thighs, adjusting my posture, curling my fingers softly as if nothing had happened. "Almost tripped," I murmured, voice soft, almost casual. But inside, my heart raced, pulse hammering. The near exposure had jolted every nerve, heightened every fear, every thrill. For the next hour, I moved like a tightrope walker, every motion calculated, every word measured, every glance precise. The tension was almost unbearable, but I maintained composure. The persona Mom had built, delicate, poised, perfect, held firm, even under the threat of discovery. When my cousin finally left, the house fell silent again. I sank onto the couch, heels discarded, fingers trembling slightly as I smoothed the lace over my thighs. The reflection in the mirror stared back at me, polished, poised, delicate, but tinged with vulnerability and exhaustion. I realized then that the persona I had inhabited so fully wasn't just about clothing or posture. It was about control, awareness, and balance. Each near exposure, each close call, each heartbeat of fear strengthened me, deepened the thrill, and cemented the duality I now carried within me. And as night fell, shadows pooling around the room, I knew that the climax of this transformation wasn't over. The next challenge, the next twist, would demand even more precision, courage, and emotional strength. The house was cloaked in darkness, shadows pooling in every corner like silent witnesses. The soft glow of the living room lamp illuminated the delicate pink dress I wore, highlighting every curl of my hair, every curve shaped by Mom's meticulous guidance. But tonight, perfection was no longer just about appearance. It was about survival, control, and maintaining a fragile balance under pressure. I moved carefully, heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. My fingers traced the lace edges of the dress, adjusting the curls that Mom had insisted be perfect. The persona, the delicate, poised, perfect little girl, was fully alive, yet every movement felt electrified with tension. One misstep, one careless gesture, and the fragile illusion could collapse entirely. A sudden sound shattered the quiet. The doorbell. Sharp, insistent. My stomach lurched violently. Who could it be at this hour? Panic clawed at me, but the thrill of the secret, the intoxicating pull of the persona, kept me rooted. Mom's voice floated from the kitchen, calm but edged with authority. "Answer it," she said softly. Her presence, though not directly interfering, amplified my anxiety. I took a deep breath, heels clicking as I approached the door. Each step felt like a test, each heartbeat a countdown. The door swung open, and there, standing in the dim light of the porch, was Isabella, unexpectedly early, and with a glint of determination in her eyes. Her gaze swept over me, taking in the dress, the curls, the carefully applied makeup. "You look different," she said softly, but there was something sharper under her tone, a curiosity, a challenge, an unspoken question about what she was seeing. Before I could respond, the back door burst open. Mom, returning from somewhere I hadn't anticipated, carried a quiet but commanding presence that froze the air around us. The two of them, the witness and the teacher, now occupied the same space. My heart hammered in my chest, adrenaline coursing through every vein. "You're doing well," Mom said softly, almost approving, almost dangerous. Her eyes flicked to Isabella, then back to me, measuring, calculating, challenging. But perfection isn't just in appearance. It's in composure. Can you hold it when tested? The challenge was immediate, tangible, and terrifying. My heels clicked against the floor as I moved, each step deliberate, every gesture calculated. Isabella's gaze never wavered, sharp, curious, probing, while Mom observed silently, weighing every motion. A sudden misstep, a loose curl brushing against my eye, made me flinch. Instantly, my composure teetered. My hands shook slightly as I adjusted the hair, and for a split second, I felt exposed, vulnerable, almost human beneath the polished exterior. Isabella's lips curved into a small, amused smile. "You're really committed," she said, teasing, yet her eyes betrayed a mixture of intrigue and caution. The tension escalated further. Mom's voice broke the silence, soft but commanding. "Remember, control is everything. One slip, one hesitation, and the balance collapses." The room felt impossibly small, charged with electricity, every glance, every breath, every heartbeat magnified. I realized then that I was no longer just practicing, no longer just performing. I was living the persona fully, inhabiting it under extreme pressure, and every flicker of fear or excitement threatened to shatter the fragile perfection. Then, disaster nearly struck. A sudden clatter from the kitchen, a falling pan, made me jump, heels wobbling dangerously. My hand shot out instinctively, gripping the edge of the couch to steady myself. Isabella and Mom both turned, eyes sharp, and for a moment, it felt as though the entire carefully constructed world could collapse. I forced a soft laugh, smoothing the dress over my thighs, adjusting my posture, fingers curling delicately as though nothing had happened. Almost dropped something, I murmured, voice soft but steady. Inside, my heart raced, pulse hammering, nerves alive with fear and exhilaration. For a tense few minutes, silence hung thickly. Every second stretched, charged with potential exposure. And then, slowly, the immediate threat passed. Mom and Isabella exchanged subtle glances, both reading the situation, both acknowledging the delicate balance I had maintained. I sank onto the couch, heels discarded, fingers tracing the lace of the dress, mind racing. The persona Mom had crafted had survived the ultimate test, but I understood now that each moment of thrill came with escalating stakes. The more I embraced this world, the higher the risk, the more intoxicating the balance of fear and desire became. And as shadows deepened across the room, I knew the story was far from over. The next challenge, the next twist, would push me even further, testing not just my composure but the very essence of who I had become. The house was quiet, almost eerily so, as the last traces of sunlight disappeared behind the horizon. The shadows pooled in every corner, and the soft glow of the living room lamp highlighted the delicate folds of the pink dress, the careful curls in my hair, and the subtle shimmer of makeup that Mom had painstakingly taught me to perfect. Yet tonight, perfection felt fragile, teetering on the edge of collapse. I sank into the couch, heels discarded, fingers tracing the lace of the dress, heart still pounding from the tension of the evening. Mom and Isabella had left moments ago, yet the air felt charged with the invisible weight of their attention, their judgments, their expectations. Every movement, every breath, every glance in the mirror reminded me that the persona I had so carefully built was no longer just practice, it was a living, breathing part of me. And yet, beneath the surface of calm, fear simmered. The near exposures, the unexpected twists, the high-stakes challenges, they had revealed something dangerous. I had tasted the thrill of inhabiting this delicate, perfect little girl persona fully, but I had also glimpsed how precarious it was. One wrong move, one lapse in control, and everything could come crashing down. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me, poised, polished, delicate, but tinged with exhaustion, vulnerability, and a faint thrill I couldn't deny. The duality of who I was, the person I had been before Mom's lessons and the persona she had created, now coexisted in tense equilibrium. I could feel the pull of both worlds, each demanding attention, each threatening to undo the other. Then came a sound that made my blood run cold. The soft click of the front door opening, deliberate, slow. My heart stopped. I wasn't expecting anyone. My pulse raced, and I felt a trembling in my fingers, the dress suddenly heavy on my skin. Mom's voice floated from the hallway, calm, measured, but carrying an unmistakable edge. I thought I heard something, or perhaps I just needed to check. I froze, perched on the edge of the couch, heels discarded but body tense, every nerve alert. The persona, the perfect little girl, was fully alive, but the fear of exposure threatened to shatter it in an instant. My mind raced through possibilities, hide, run, speak, but no choice felt safe. Isabella's voice, soft and teasing from the living room where she had returned unexpectedly, sliced through the tension. I guess I wasn't the only one curious about tonight. The room became a taut wire stretched between past and present, desire and fear, secrecy and exposure. Mom's eyes swept over me, then over Isabella, then back to me again. The weight of expectation, judgment, and challenge pressed down like a tangible force. I realized, with a sinking thrill, that I was caught, literally and metaphorically, between two worlds. The persona I had inhabited so carefully, the delicate, polished little girl, was fully exposed now to two forces I could not control simultaneously. One wrong word, one misstep, one flicker of emotion could unravel the persona entirely, revealing my secret life to both women. My legs trembled slightly, the soft fabric of the dress brushing against my thighs as I struggled to maintain composure. My hands shook, fingers curling delicately as though the very act of touch could betray me. Every heartbeat echoed in the silence, a drumbeat of fear and excitement intertwined. Mom stepped closer, eyes sharp, lips pressed into a thin line. "You've learned much," she said softly, voice calm but carrying an unspoken command. "But the final test isn't about clothes, posture, or curls. It's about control, your ability to maintain this persona under true pressure." Isabella's gaze flicked between me and Mom, curious, amused, almost teasing, but there was a sharp edge too, a hint that she understood more than she let on. My pulse raced. Every muscle tensed. Every nerve screamed. I could feel the delicate balance tipping. Fear and thrill, secrecy and exposure, desire and vulnerability, they collided inside me, creating a tension that felt unbearable. I wanted to run, to hide, to shed the persona entirely, but I also couldn't. The thrill, the exhilaration, the intoxicating pull of perfection and secrecy held me rooted, teetering on the edge of revelation. And then, silence. The room held its breath. Mom's eyes locked with mine, and Isabella's subtle smile hinted at her curiosity, her knowledge, her unspoken question. I was frozen in place, caught fully between two worlds, every heartbeat echoing the precariousness of my situation. Would I be discovered? Would the persona collapse under pressure? Or could I somehow maintain the delicate, perfect balance I had fought so hard to achieve? The answers were uncertain. The tension hung thick, unresolved, every second stretching into eternity. And as the shadows deepened across the room, I understood fully, this was only the beginning. The story of transformation, secrecy, and control was far from over. And for the first time, I realized just how much I craved the thrill, and feared the consequences. The door clicked softly behind Mom. Isabella lingered, her eyes lingering on me one last time. And then, the scene froze, suspended in a moment of uncertainty, leaving everything unresolved.